play, and nobody would play a Yanga and Simba game on a Sunday night during the elections. It's unheard of because the whole country is tense. Why? Because we run our elections terribly. That's why. Now, what is our role as a law society? I suggest we start by asking ourselves, why do we bother having elections? Why? 2, how do we want them to be conducted? And 3, what if things go wrong? Because these are fundamental questions. If we want elections, then we have to know why we want them. And essentially, we want elections because we want to be part of the process of running the government. We want to have our representatives running the government, right? And the only way we can ensure that is by our vote. So what is the beginning of the process? The beginning of the process is the registration process. Universal suffrage. The right that every Tanzanian has to vote. Now, what is our role in that as a law society? I think sometimes it's very sexy to come at the end of the process when the day people are voting, and then we have the right to monitor. Everybody loves that part. But there's hard work to do at the very, very beginning of the process. And the hard work is to ensure there is universal suffrage, that those who are entitled to vote have the right to be registered. And not only that, also to ensure that they have sufficient opportunity for registration. I'm afraid to say that when we look at our Tume ya Uchaguzi, which is now Tume Huru ya Uchaguzi, we have to question whether they provide us sufficient opportunity to register. I mean, they sit quiet for 5 years, and 6 months before general elections, they then announce they want to register people, and probably they'll be registering people in your area 3 times in 6 months. What are your chances of having that registration? Why can't they do online registration? Or what other means are there that one can register? That we can make registration a lot more easier, a constant process. Because if you ask me, the registration process as we see it today is unconstitutional. Have we ever looked at it in that way? Is it conducive to allowing giving every single Tanzanian an opportunity to register? So these are sort of things we should question. Once you understand the basis of why we go to elections, then you start questioning the whole process and what role we can play. The second question I asked is how do we want these elections to be conducted? We basically want a fair process. We want everyone who wants to vote to get the opportunity to vote, to get the opportunity to vote who they want to vote into power, and for their vote to be counted. Let's think for a moment about South Africa. You know, the good thing about Makaburu or South Africa is that they didn't mess around. They didn't joke. They didn't make a mockery out of the process. You know what they said? We'll just make a law that says black people cannot vote. And they made that law. They passed it into law, and black people couldn't vote. That's it, finished. Unfortunately, we live in a country in which certain people can't vote, yet we don't have it in law. But in practice, that's the case. I say, at least let's put it in law and we can challenge it. But basically, we can have this system We need a system that is conducted fairly. The other thing is, what if things go wrong? Because things always do go wrong, right? They do go wrong. Do we have a system in which, when things go wrong, they can be adjudicated in a just manner and fairly? These are questions we have to ask ourselves. So what is our role as a law society, and not as individuals? I believe we have 4 main roles. The first role is monitoring, and the monitoring doesn't happen at the end of the process when people go to vote. Monitoring, we need to monitor the process from the day after the president is what is our team in Uchaguzi doing to prepare for the next election? It's an ongoing process. Elections are just not the day. No. Elections are the entire system. So we need to be able, the whole society, to monitor what is going on. We need to be able to use our voice, because believe it or not, there are times when the law society has public confidence. Sometimes we don't, and that's normal. And sometimes we do have public confidence. And we have to ask ourselves, when is it that the public has confidence in us? I believe I can use both. Okay, thank you. So my belief is that the public has confidence in us when we do our Section 4 role. And we stand up for them. And we advocate for them. So we need to use our role to advocate. What does that mean? I'm going to take an example of the Utawala case. So in that particular case, I had read a book, a short book, on the electoral process in Tanzania. I came to the end of it. I realized that our main problem were the deaths. This electoral, the executive directors. Then called friends of mine, both in CCM and in Chadema. Believe it or not, I have friends in both parties. And I asked them, what role in practice do these friends play? And they explained it. No part. And then I talked to some friends, and Bob Chachawanga said, you know what, Fatma? I would love to be here. And I took the case to court. I won at first instance. And one of the judges in the panel, sitting here, Judge Utawala, she wrote a fantastic judgment. And I'm very grateful for that. We went to the Court of Appeal, and we lost in the Court of Appeal. I have to admit to you all that I was under no illusion that I would win in the Court of Appeal. I mean, after all, we've had judgments from this particular Court of Appeal in which concept of the right to bail was denied entirely. So I was under no disillusion, particularly given the fact that the rate at which the appeal was heard was unprecedented. The speed of it was unprecedented. It was heard within a period of 2.5 months or 3 months. However, I said to myself, I'm going to use this to advocate. Because it doesn't matter really what the Court of Appeal says, ultimately. What matters is what the people of the United Republic of Tanzania really think, and my job is to educate them and to show them the weakness in the system, the systemic weaknesses. So it doesn't matter whether the Court of Appeal shores this up. And this is what they did do. Instead of knocking at the system and saying this is a systemic weakness that we cannot abide by, they shored it up. Like the Kaburas in apartheid South Africa. just use the law to protect bad law. They use their voices to protect a bad law. But the people of Tanzania understood it. And guess what? Even the politicians understood it. Even those in power understood it. And they then came up with this idea. They amended the law and came up with this idea that deads don't necessarily have to be manifu or Uchaguzi. And I say, thank you, thank you, thank you. Because it took education, it took my advocacy. And a lot of other people advocated and educating the general public. So advocacy is extremely important because ultimately our people, as Judge Makaramba said, he started off saying, that is the reality of our country. The reality of our country, education, even those when you get to education, very few people are highly educated, very few people are highly exposed, very few people can even afford to buy a newspaper. Very few people can afford to buy, what is this, data, or even have smartphones. Forget about data. That's a luxury. The smartphones themselves. Everybody has a kidochi. So educating people using radio is very, very important because, you know, we all know that TBC or BBC, TBB, Tanzania Broadcasting, TBC, Tanzania Broadcasting Corporation. Right. Now we all know that that's a bit biased, but you try and use media to advocate as much as possible. Our other job is legal education and awareness. That's really important. Listen, we all pay fees here, but those fees, we owe a lot to the people who have educated us to this level. Because none of us have been educated through the means of one person. Sote somewhere, kuna watu wengine wamechangia. It's not about getting a suit for yourself. It's really about what we can do to help our country, to help those who have left villages. Most of us, I like to say this story, you know, most of us are, I mean, I am 3 generations away from a mud hut. My grandfather was born in a factory. Right? My father was born in a mud hut. And I was born in a big house. That's what, 2 generations on my father's side? That's all it is. I am 2 generations away. Some people have learned that 1 generation. Then not even a generation away. Children, 1 generation. So we owe a lot. We owe a lot to our ancestors, our families. Only about us. And all this time. So let's make them aware. Let's educate them. Finally, legally. So this is the last thing. How do we assist? Give me we should be taking on constitutional cases. This is really important. We can't sit back and just look at the system and not test it. Constitutional cases allow us to test our legal environment opposed in opposition to the Constitution. Now, we haven't been doing that. We keep doing it. We can't just sit back and say we have a bad constitution. Our constitution isn't good. That's true. There's a lot of power in the executive. However, it still can be challenged. We can still challenge our laws. We can still do what lawyers do. We don't fight in the streets. None of us can do that. But you know, we can fight at courts. We can think. We we can put our thinking caps on and look at different ways of improving the legal environment. So my call to you is, as a society we have a role. We're trusted by the general public. And there are lots of us now, I understand. I think we're now 11,000. Are we 11,000?
More than that.
We're more than 11,000 members. Together, we have the financial power, we have the intellectual power, we have the physical power to go to court, right? And to make sure that we challenge things that we see as unconstitutional. I know that a lot of you worry that if you put your head above the parapet wall, I don't know how to say that, I hope you've understood me. A parapet wall is basically in a castle. In the UK, there is a parapet wall. So you will defend your castle from the parapet wall, and you have a moat at the bottom, and there will be a water surround the castle. So you were always told not to put your head above the parapet wall, because as you spears or you aimed arrows down, keep your head as much as possible below the parapet wall, because you don't want someone to lob something over and take your head off, because you'd be dead then. So a lot of the saying says, keep your head below the parapet wall in case somebody lobs your head off. Well, I didn't keep my head below the parapet wall. I lifted my head above the parapet wall, and I'm grateful for it. I still look good. I'm still here. So don't worry about it. You will all survive as I did.
Thank you, Fatma, for very encouraging words. On Saturday, you remember we had a symposium at TLS, and one of the speakers was Professor Elisha Ngoya from Kenya, who happened to be the leading counsel for the impeached deputy president in Kenya, Rigathi. And what he told us as a society, keep these lawyers busy. These laws have a lot of problems. Constitution is always violated, but lawyers as a society must be kept busy in using courts. And what he told us, and this was once remarked, they said, I think he's echoed something which was said by senior Mpale Mpoki, kama tunafungua hizi kesi hatufungui ili tushinde. Jamii itakuja kutuambia mlifanya nini. Tutawaambia tulifanya hiki, lakini mahakama ilifanya hiki. Kilatu uko wapi? Kilatu uko wapi? Simama. Tulipofanya kesi ya Dickson Sanka ya makosa yasiyokuwa na dhamana, tulishinda mahakama kuu. Tulipenda mahakama ya rufaa, mahakama ya rufaa ikapindua yale maamuzi. Kilatu akaandika article inasema jamii itakuja kuulizwa, inasema kulikuwa na lawyers ambao walikuwa brave sana kufungua mashauri mahakamani ili kulinda jamii kwenye uhuru wao na usalama, na kulikuwa kuna mahakama upande wa pili ambao ilikuwa haioni chochote kuhusu uhuru. Tulipoda kwenye advocates committee kwa article hiyo, lakini baadaye wanafutia ile kesi. Sio ulienda kuhonga, sielewi. Ya walifutia, lakini I'm telling you, court judgments are open for criticism. Court judgment, kama unafanya kazi alafu unaikwepa kazi yako, una shida. Kama unafanya kazi utaki waizungumzie, kuna tatizo sehemu. Kwa hiyo naomba niende kwa Madam Ellen Kijo Bisimba, daktari huyu, atuambie role of civil society. Akiwa mkurugenzi wa Tanganyika wa Legal Human Rights Center, alifanya kazi nyingi sana. Na kesi nayokumbuka ambayo ni ya uchaguzi ilikuwa ni kesi ya Takrima, ambayo ilikuwa na link na Tanganyika Law Society nadhani, ambayo ilikuwa very successful, na ni kati ya kesi ambayo ilitekelezwa hata bila fujo nyingi. Serikali ukata rufaa, sheria ilikuwa na ruhusa Takrima, Stola wakili wake yuko hapa. Kwa hiyo naomba utuambie